must be shorter than me, Fred. This is a really exciting conversation that we're going to have, and this really shows an element of a new ICMM. When I mentioned about Matthew Tanner's work that he had done with Lloyd's Heritage Foundation, this was the beginning of something extremely exciting that we are moving forward on. When Matthew invited Louise Sanger, who I'm expecting to be sitting up here at any second, with Felicity Ferguson at any second, that was subtle, wasn't it? To come and to the Congress in Halifax to learn more about us and about the possibilities of a partnership that we could work together. And from that, after months of hard work, and Matthew will attest to how much hard work that was, with Sally, with the entire EC, but Matthew was the lead on this, we were awarded a major grant from Lloyd's Register Foundation. And I'll explain what a major grant means in this respect. This now helps make ICMM a grant-giving body. This is monies that we are here to give to you. The first 2 years, it's a 6-year grant split over 3 tranches of 2 years per tranche. The first year is £330,000 that we have to give away. The key part of this is that Lloyd's recognized that with their investment in museum practice and by their ability to help ICMM go from local to global, that was part of the key attraction. They are helping us to leverage our network by putting money in the hands of small museums in partnership, if need be, with bigger museums. You think of the big brother, big sister concept. They recognize our challenge to find new members, to renew them, to sustain them, and they are committed to helping us in that respect. And this program, we believe, will actually make us stronger over these next years to be able to do so. Felicity is going to, Louise first is going to speak more to that, and then Felicity Ferguson. We created a new position to help us actually make this happen. So a ICMM Global Maritime Histories Manager, that's a great business card, was developed to manage, a position was developed to manage the grant and support the development of the research strands that would be happening from this program. And this actually works quite well. Lloyd's is based in London. I'm based on Maryland, on the east coast of the United States, and Felicity is in Melbourne, Australia. So that's a great concept of ICMM in action. And with that, Felicity is supporting the delivery of that public engagement output. She's working with each of you to create applications, proposals to come to us for us to be able to work with you to expand upon those proposals and be able to deliver this money to you to be fantastic in everything that you're doing and drawing upon your collections and drawing upon the skills of your staff, of your people, to be able to create this kind of information, this work of information that will help support us, grow ICMM, and help support the tenets, the philosophy of Lloyd's Register Foundation. So without further ado, may I please introduce our fairy godmother, I hope you don't mind, Louise Sanger from Lloyd's Register Foundation.
Everyone, it's so fantastic to be back at my second Congress and see some familiar faces and meet lots of new ones. So thank you for making my colleagues and I feel so welcome in part of this fantastic network. And hello to anyone as well who's listening online and following on later. It's also great to have you. And I'm looking forward to even more exciting conversations as the day goes on. I'd like to tell you a bit more about Lloyd's Register Foundation. You're probably wondering who we are and what we're about, or you may already know. And also myself, I'm Louise Sanger, so I'm Head of Research, Interpretation and Engagement. So I work in our Heritage and Education Centre and across the foundation. I actually have a background as a maritime historian, and I have a passion for working in archives. So what could be better? I get to play with old books and look at old ships, which I love. And I'd like to tell you a little bit as well, in particular, about Lloyd's Register Foundation, which is a global safety charity. We work with stakeholders all around the world to engineer a safer world together. And we do that through our grant giving and through our partnerships, through collaborations. And although we were only formed 12 years ago, our origins and our mission are much older. So our origins date back to 1760 with the Classification Society Lloyd's Register, which we still work with today. And that, as many of you know, started with one question, which I've actually nicked from Alex because I like the way he describes it. And is that ship safe to go to sea? If not, why not? And that's really what started Lloyd's Register and was the basis of all of our collections, which are still growing today. It also informs much of what we do today. How can we make the world a safer place? Our remit's a lot wider than just ships now, and I'll tell you a bit more about that. So as you can see here, we have the mission of the foundation to engineer a safer world, and we do this in a number of ways. We do this through public education, through supporting relevant engineering and technological disciplines, and through skills for safety programs. We also work across complex maritime systems, so we're really, really interested in how the ocean is a connecting piece. And we build evidence, insight, data, expertise to inform where in the world our resources and our work can best help. And key to this is things like our World Risk Poll, our heritage and archive collections. So we have all of this evidence and information that informs where we invest charitable money. So as the custodians of the LR story, we have a brilliant collection. It includes over 1.2 million ship plans and survey reports, which are now freely available online, and of course the Register of Ships, which you have a wonderful collection of up in the library, where I've been hanging out because I love books, and they're also freely available online. And that, of course, is where it all began, in Edward Lloyd's coffee house. And many good things start over a cup of coffee, as I'm sure we all explore today in our conversations. But today, through our Heritage and Education Centre work, we work to increase the understanding of maritime safety and its importance to the past, present and future of the ocean economy. And that's really where the invitation to come to ICMM 2 years ago was so enriching, because we do work in a number of ways, including making our own and others' collections more accessible. But there's only 14 of us in the team, so partnerships and collaborations are so important. One of the other ways that we deliver our Heritage and Education Centre vision is through our flagship Learning from the Past programme. And so some of you may recall, although I know we heard a lot of papers, I launched the programme in Halifax in 2022, and I'm now proud to say that we have a number of projects in the area. And one example is our work with the UN Ocean Decade Cultural Heritage Framework Programme, which works to bring together cultural heritage data with scientific data and try to bring that to the attention of people who can make a difference, to change makers. It's also achieved by enabling research and education and by showcasing stories, highlighting the importance of why cultural heritage matters, why the ocean matters to people. And it's particularly important today in the face of challenges around the world, And one of the ways that we really want to work with ICMM and with other partners that we're speaking with is to seek to hear from forgotten voices or overlooked voices, which are often in coastal communities, vulnerable communities, most at risk from sea level rise. So that's one of the ways where we'd be really interested to hear people's ideas. So how do we do this? So as well as the ICMM programme, Global Case Studies for Change, which you'll hear more about shortly, there are also opportunities to apply directly to the Lloyd's Register Foundation. One way is through our small grant scheme, which runs several times a year, and it's grants of up to £10,000, and that opens tomorrow, actually, so very fortunately for applications. The ethos is a little can go a long way, and we encourage applications from organisations that want to initiate projects and ideas to build partnerships with organisations in relevant sectors. So it might be to test out ideas or run pilot studies and activities that target the heritage, maritime and public sectors. We only consider applications related to our broader mission, so hopefully you are paying attention, but if not, you can find us at LRF HEC and ask any colleagues in the room. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about why we're so excited to have this opportunity to work with ICMM and the Global Case Studies for Change programme, which is has been designed and built very much in partnership with ICMM to see how we can build capacity through the global network to enable mobilisation of heritage for change, seeing the opportunities and ideas that museums around the world have, building new partnerships, and supporting local voices throughout the activities. Together we can make a difference. So now it's time to hear a little bit more about this fantastic opportunity and how you and your member institutions can get involved. And I'm very pleased to introduce Felicity Ferguson, the new Global Histories Manager. Felicity, over to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Kristen, and thank you, Louise. And this is a really kind of prosaic example of ICMM at work. I mean, it is a team that is bringing this new innovation and change-making project to you as ICMM members and the delegates here in the room to be able to hear a little bit more about the why, not so much the why, but more about the how. I'm going to put a target on my back. I'm at the Congress all the time. I'm open to any questions. I mightn't have all the answers, but we are developing this as a brand new initiative for ICMM. Oh, there we go. I think it's really important to emphasise the value of partnership and also our global reach. Because while we're very busy doing the business of the business, we kind of can forget how we're so interconnected, and that's why Congress is such an important event for us. The Lloyd's Register Foundation sort of brief has really got three different elements. One about capacity building for the ICMM network, one about connecting and growing our network in the Global South, and one about building, having transformative projects for member organisations and partnerships. There's a split there of global, our membership profile and also how many of our members reside in the Global South. I'm not a geography nerd, but I did have to go, oh, Global South, what does that mean? Is it south of the equator, or is there another term? In kind of codifying our focus, this graphic is kind of quite cute. It's called the Brandt line, named after Willy Brandt, who was the Chancellor of Germany some time ago in the 1980s. But he was briefed with looking at, the view was, how do you build greater equity of economic development and global development? And I quite like the graphic because it's a swirly thing and it looks kind of more interesting than this one. But the important thing is that if you're thinking about who are we wanting to really build connection with and network with, they're our cousins and our colleagues in this part of the world, but also partnering with organisations in the international context. So it's kind of a multifaceted pitch or strategy. And so the work that Matthew over there did with other colleagues to put in the bid, coffee and cake at Halifax. Don't underestimate coffee and cake. It really oils the wheels of relationships. But the work that they did led to this very transformative grant program for ICMM. And while Matthew had a particular kind of brief that he brought to the paper, that he worked with Lloyd's, there was alignment, there's always some organic development. The important thing for us is that when we sent out our membership survey, or our members survey back in July, some of the questions were in and around what are you thinking about at the moment, what's important for you? Because it's all well and good for having a bucket of money to say, oh, here's some money, let's do some interesting things, let's focus on blue economy or climate resilience. But at the end of the day, there's got to be the capacity to do that. And we all know that we're passionate. There are more ideas than there are hours in the day. But at the end of the day, we wanted to see a bit of a litmus test. But what was really interesting in the respondents from the survey was that, 55, 60% of members said, look, they've got capacity, and then depends on how much money, it'll depend on how much capacity I've got. So it wasn't going to be a patriarchal kind of top-down. It's going to be about how can we work with you to realise different things and dreams. So the thing is that we're storytellers. We're people who are connected with community. So our high skill is something that was very much seen as an attractive element for Lloyd's Register Foundation to further their mission. So the premise of this is partnership. The premise of this is your high skill, the things that you're really good at as storytelling, keeping places. So looking at the past, learning from the past, using collections, connecting with community, and how do they help us understand the better decisions for the future. So the framework isn't about just because you've got a floating maritime collection and you're passionate about vessels. It's more some of the things we've heard about already today. It's about, well, what is maritime? How does that connect us? How do we help be stewards of a better world? So it is transformative. It is a change-making opportunity for a different narrative to be built within your organisations. And Christina Brophy talked a little bit about that in one of the breakout sessions about, how do you partner? How do you buy in? So essentially, we're learning how to do this as we go along. We've been a membership organisation for 52 years. We haven't really employed people, so I'm very fortunate for the opportunity as a Global Maritime Histories Project Manager. And the organisation is being stretched internally ourselves. But that's great because we're growing and we're getting systems and processes in place. So the three phases of project development really is about getting the stuff in place, getting the systems and process, getting the staff in place, getting our policies and procedures, and building capacity, and also testing the model. What is it and what does it look like? How do we do it? How do we engage with you as members? So phase one essentially is dealing with that, and this is phase one. I'm the manifestation part. One of the objectives of phase one through the hard work led by Kristen and her exec. And then that's proof of concept. So, and then phase two is a bigger reach. We'll have systems and processes in place, and we'll be able to deal with a higher volume of engagement. I'll know which way's up. I know 6 o'clock on a Tuesday morning's my time with Kristen, and that works really well, and we get together and we work it out. We have a fortnightly project steering group, and we've got terms of reference, and all of these things didn't exist for 5 months ago. Oh, sorry, phase three is really a kind of what did we learn in phase two? How are we going to improve and develop And how is our relationship going with Lloyd's? Do they feel we're good custodians of that privilege of having that grant money? And, ambitiously, can we maintain a relationship with Lloyd's and become a preferred provider? So this is kind of a bit detailed, but essentially what we're trying to do is build a project and deliver a series of things, and it's a staged process. It's measured because we want to learn as we go and have good systems that are scalable and defensible as we move forward. And I'm not going to read through that. But in the proof of concept phase, there's a lot already been completed. A lot has been achieved, although at the moment, as the membership, you're going, well, where's the money? When are we going to benefit? And what we're doing is we're getting the foundations in place in phase one, and then we'll grow and develop as we move forward. So it's interesting, while I'm based in Melbourne, Melbourne's east coast of Australia's Pacific Rim. So it's interesting the conversations I've been able to reach out to, and certainly through Congress, I'll build that conversation. But there are some very clear topics and themes that are having resonance with people I've been in conversation with, but also how those align with the objectives of Lloyd's Register Foundation. But it's an organic process, and there'll be some things that maybe in stage 3 that we're doing that we hadn't even thought of in stage 2. And you are part of that growth and part of that learning process. So in order to look at, well, what does it look like and how do we make it? Is it a red triangle or a blue square? If we look at, technically, for instance, because I'm based in Australasia, technically that's actually not global south, but we're within spitting distance, within reach of many countries and many organisations that are in the global south. So in some ways, looking at it as a springboard, and how do we utilise networks that are already there. One example is the Pacific Islands Museums Association, and there's been connection with PEMA over many years, either personally in my other life, Australian National Maritime Museum. So it's about that, organisations evolve and develop, but with a partnership with a funding element attached, it may well be transformative for them in how they can take each other to the next level. So if you look at the PEMA engagement, it's Pacifica, it's Melanesia, it's the wider Pacific. It's not about the east coast of Australia or the west coast of South America. So what I've been able to do is pull together maybe 8 to 10 what I call prospect projects, which are our opportunity to model and to look at what a project might look like, and to pick some and invite those prospect projects into a first round, a pilot phase, where we will learn and develop our systems and processes. So one example here is the sister organisation model that Kristen referred to. With Mystic Seaport Maritime Museum, Christina has nothing better to do and other than be really over everything, and is very keen to be a partner. And if she was putting in for an application for a program, her idea would be that Mystic Seaport can partner with the Museums Association of the Caribbean and work with them on building narratives in around climate change, resilience, First Nations, traditional knowledge building. So while Mystic is technically in the global north, she's working, that partnership would be about a collaboration and an enabling process through the funding that Lloyd's Register Foundation would enable a number of activities to take place. Another example is in Hobart Town in Tasmania. There's a biannual historically traditional classic boats festival. It's run by the community. It's not run by the state government or the Tasmanian Maritime Museum. And they run it in the odd years. So in 2025, there's a push to increase the engagement with Pacific narratives. So instead of it just being about my classic wooden boat that's just knockout and it's eye candy, what they're working hard on is getting Pacific voyaging, traditional knowledge sharing, First Nations, Australian, and there's liaison with the New Zealand Maritime Museum through Vincent's support, and looking at the whole Pacific voyaging and traditional knowledge and star navigation, astral navigation through stars. So were they to put in for this kind of project could well fit into a Lloyd's Register Foundation Global Maritime Histories program, and I quite liked that bit when I did it at 11 o'clock one night. I went, yeah, that gets it. I don't need to explain that. And then another example is looking at how we can build, sorry, did I go? There we go, that should be right. So, you know, while they might do a Nowie watercraft, the watercraft on the left is a traditional First Nations Australian reed-built watercraft, reed bark watercraft, whereas the one on the right is more Pacific. So that combination of engagement and the comparison is a very strong learning process for people who maybe wouldn't ordinarily be exposed to those narratives. Another area, and once again through my network and the support of the Australian National Maritime Museum, is looking at black reefs. And now Lloyd's already have a program in and around black reefs, but this idea of a project would be that the Australian National Maritime Museum, a sister organisation working directly with the Fiji National Museum and looking at a number of established wrecks that were researched back in 1998, but also looking at the potential for ecotourism and some kind of First Nations kind of enterprise that would be more about how those sites can be managed and what they could bring to the local community. So once again, it's an empowerment thing rather than kind of a transactional thing. The other one, which I used to work in far north Queensland in another life, and this relates to the narratives of First Nations Australians, but more Torres Strait Islanders, which is, for people who aren't familiar with the geography, you know, the Torres Strait territory for Australia is within 40 kilometres of the Papua New Guinea. But here there's a rich narrative in and around traditional knowledge and traditional communities being used within the pearl shell fishing industry back in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. But while that industry collapsed because of over-harvesting, there is still a narrative in and around the traditional knowledge that these communities still have, and what level of trading is still being maintained and what can be done in the future. And Matt Pohl from the Australian National Maritime Museum, who's hiding somewhere, down in the middle, down the back there. Matt's been working with me on this as a potential pilot project. And it's quite exciting because this is Pacifica. It's not kind of Australian mainland, and it's First Nations. And these are important narratives and important voices that if the Lloyd's Register Foundation application process, which will be done through a project steering group review process, if this got up, it would make a big difference and it would be transformative for that community, but also help build further knowledge for the future management of the area. So, I don't know how I'm going for time. So look, there's a lot happening. Right at the moment, we're about to, we've just connected with, made a commitment to contract to the Smarty Grants grant portal, which while it's been Australian-based over many years working for not-for-profits, the Australian National Maritime Museum use this for their annual MAPS grants program of about 150,000 Aussie a year. But they've just established a UK foothold, and we've negotiated a 2-year Pathfinder account partnership where actually we we are given 2 years license agreement with Smarty Grants to work with them to build a connection with community in the UK. So that's exciting in as much that they see ICMM as having that value and those credentials. You know, it's a proven product. It's been used in the sector. It's been used in not-for-profit. So we're not getting something that's a bit left field. That's very, very boring. But the important thing is that that leads to that. There's 2 slides here which relate to key dates and key deliverables. So what we are aiming to do with Smarty Grants is go live for our pilot projects, and that would be by invitation. Those organisations and any others that bubble up in the next little while will be able to apply through an online portal. And that go live date, now this is the first time Smarty Grants has operated in the UK. And I said to them, well, what's your best, you know, when do you think you can be up and running? And we talked about a date, and I said, well, why don't we throw another week at it to give you wriggle room? Because I don't want shouting and screaming if it's not quite right. So looking at that cycle of the pilot phase, the testing, how do those projects work? How do we do our reporting? We've got to report to LRF as a grant recipient, but also we've got to have our due diligence and our audit trail. And Mikhail there is our on-Tresh, and he's right on the money, but also very mindful in the project steering group, and I value that support greatly. That we have to be accountable both to you as a membership, but also both to LRF and also to the grant recipients. So that cycle would finish in about September next year. But in the meantime, we'd be doing a more general call for expressions of interest, which is in this, hang on, that slide. Who is it, March? Yeah. So that's when we'll be looking at for a broader call of EOIs from the wider membership. So it's really about what we can manage at the start and then how we grow and develop. So if you're thinking about global maritime histories and your forward planning, your budget cycle, and it's kind of a bit tricky because it varies which hemisphere you're in and what administration you're working under. But that EOIs, then we'd have a grant application process in May 2025, and then we'll go through those steps. Now, the important thing is that we are learning as we're going. But our aim is to get the best practice in place and get the foundations established so then it's scalable and long-term benefit to ICM as a membership organisation. And at the same time, it's about us developing our relationship with Lloyd's Register Foundation, but also developing our relationship as a grant awarding organisation, which we haven't done before, but it's exciting that we can. So, you know, coffee and cake, getting people around the table, being ambitious. My role is to help facilitate your application process as we go forward. But at the moment, my focus has been predominantly on working with Kristen as the lead, you know, with EC, to actually get systems and processes in place. But we will be having a pilot phase, and then March 25 is the broader call for EOIs. And by then we will already know, you know, what sort of works, what doesn't work, what's sensible, what's a useful amount of financial support, or what's an inconvenient amount in terms of administration. How am I going for time? Was it? Done? All right.
I'm delighted now to call up Alex Stitt, who is Director of Heritage at Lloyd's Register Foundation. As we heard earlier, this is a transformative project for ICMM, and we invited Alex to come and say a few words about Lloyd's Register Foundation and other opportunities, and also to maybe respond to the things you've heard today. So Alex, over to you.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for inviting us. The first thing I'd like to say is to maybe dial down the rhetoric of gratitude and dial up the rhetoric of partnership, if that's okay, because this is our job. We have I've got 4 wonderful colleagues here who it's my privilege to manage and to lead. But our job is to distribute neutral money. I'm not George Soros, it's not my money. Our job is to distribute that money and to put that money to work. And ICMM offered this fantastic opportunity for us to do that and to make our lives easier at LRF, which is to, here's a partner who can take our money and put it to work where it's most needed. And that's what we do for a living. It's an amazing, slightly ridiculous job, but we do it with great passion. I've got some fantastic colleagues here who you'll meet, I hope, and who are brilliant at what they do, and certainly inspire me, and I hope inspire you in trying to make the world a safer place. We believe, and I've come from the heritage sector. I was at the Victoria and Albert Museum before, and we believe in the power of heritage to affect and inform debates about contemporary issues, and the maritime heritage sector struck me as an amazing installed base of institutions that have tremendous convening power, incredible reputations, and brilliant collections. But it's a sector that was kind of in transition. It was no longer content to kind of luxuriate in the past and kind of put up its custard pot from the Titanic and kind of think that was what was running a museum was all about. But instead, this was a sector, and I was inspired in Nova Scotia to see a group of people who were trying really to re-energize and struggle for relevance and struggle to engage and take their collections, their institutions, and their people and make them relevant to the problems of today. And that's exactly where LRF is, hoping to fund and hoping to support the sector as a whole. We are committed to the maritime sector. We're committed to helping the maritime sector engage with the very, very pressing issues that it faces today in order to maintain global trade, in order to maintain the health and the mental health of seafarers, and in order to decarbonize. And we believe that there are many, many lessons locked up in the past, locked up in your collections, about energy transition, for example, that can be liberated, can be retold using your creative and your creativity and your collections to inform the policymakers of today. And you can convene where you live, where you are, you can convene those policymakers and those influencers and those people in your institutions to help tell those stories. And that we really want to help and enable that process. So that's why we're here. That's why we want to support you, and we want to support ICMM. Just a couple of notes beyond that. I mean, we are bigger. We're committed to maritime heritage funding, the maritime heritage sector. We do it at different levels. So we have big strategic partnerships with. We're a big funder of the Maritime Museum in the UK. We fund their contemporary, we're very proud to fund their contemporary team who are here, Laura, and we're hoping to build big strategic partnerships with nominated institutions around the world. We have ICMM, who is going to be our kind of mid-tier partner to try to get money from, through the networks to places that we can't reach because we can't talk to everyone. And then we have this brilliant small grants program, which Louise has mentioned, which is just starting to, we had a kind of extraordinary, let's try the cultural sector for small grants, and we immediately got rid of like £120,000 in our first lot, which was just brilliant. So we want to do that more often, £10,000 units of support to very specific things, if you can align them with our mission. Quite low level of governance, quite accessible. Our job, our interest in that, to be honest, is to build our network. So, LRF, believe it or not, although very wealthy, not very well known. So we want to become better known. We want more partnerships. We want more people to think of us when they think about their financial needs. So the other two notes is that the other kind of funding stream that we're very keen to develop is about our own archive. Louise mentioned that we've been asking and answering the same question for 250 odd years, which is this ship safe to go to sea? If not, why not? And in that process, we've accumulated this massive database of ship plans, survey reports, minutes, all of which is now digitized, all of which is codified. And we're about to upgrade that. We're about to embark on a project to bring it right up to date. So we have a big database, we have a big archive, and we're keen to work with the seeking partnerships to bring that archive to life. You know, how can we make that archive relevant, connect it? So we're going to work with the national archives in the UK, but maybe you've got some archival holdings. Maybe there are ways you can come to us and use what we have to mobilize information about the history of ship design as it relates to safety and how, you know, future generations could learn from that. Really excited if you've got any suggestions about that. There's a slightly parallel funding stream, but it's more archival. And finally, this is the thing that really getting us excited, and my colleague Luca is over there, who's leading on this. We're about to reopen in London our visitor centre, or kind of centre, literally a centre, a physical centre, right in the heart of the City of London, the historic home of Lloyd's Register, which is just as, and we've invested in state-of-the-art archive. It's got a small lecture theatre, it's got big, historic, highly decorative rooms, and we're actually building a library. Louise, my colleague, is so excited because we're finally building a proper library to house our collection of, you know, unique collection of books. So we're really investing in creating this centre. And this centre is, the ambition for this centre is it should be a centre for the industry, a centre and particularly for us. So if we want to invite colleagues like yourselves and your networks, if you need somewhere to meet, if you need somewhere, a centre in London to come together and to gather, we'd like you to think about our centre at 71 Fenchurch Street, which we will make available to you at no charge. If you can just bring cool people together to have really good conversations about the issues that face the maritime industry, we would love to host you, and we would love to welcome you there. You know, we reopen in kind of January next year, and that's a real red letter day for LR and particularly for the heritage team. You know, that's something we've been exiled from this place for a long time, and we're going to be opening there. So we'd really like to welcome you there, as I say, and there's a brilliant no charge type. You heard it here first. So finally, so thank you all. I mean, I would just like to put a few notes out there, because inevitably, if you come here wearing a pink jacket and representing £20 million a year of money to give away, people are going to want to talk to you. Can I just put a few notes down about things you can't talk to me about? So first of all, please don't talk to me about capital projects, because we don't fund capital projects. Please don't talk to me about sponsorship, because we don't sponsor things. We're not interested in getting our name out there in the world. We just want to do good work. And please, and really, this makes me really sad, don't talk to me about, please acknowledge the difference between maritime and marine. You know, we're about infrastructure. Our unit of currency is the ship. The seafarer is our person. We are a people and infrastructure-based organization, and where we can only go as far as where the environmental work affects, you know, the people. That's unfortunate. I mean, as much as, you know, obviously I'm as green as anybody, but unfortunately our charter doesn't allow us to talk about those things as much as I would like it to. But anyway, listen, thank you so much for inviting us. And again, please don't dial up the gratitude. Please think about us as a partner, and please do keep talking. That would be great. Thank you so much.